Welcome to Rise Untold, where the stories behind the spotlight come alive. At 62, most actors fade quietly into the background. But Johnny Depp, he became something else entirely. He doesn't just look different now. He is different. The wild hair is gone. The eyes, once lined with coal and chaos, now hide behind tinted glasses. The swagger has slowed. The mystery has deepened. And the man who once made the world fall in love with a pirate now walks like someone who's survived a shipwreck. Because at 62, Johnny Depp carries more than age on his face, that he carries history. He was never meant to fit into Hollywood's mold. Too strange, too soulful, too real, but they loved him for it. Until they didn't. There was a time when his name meant magic. Every role, a reinvention, every appearance, an event. Then came the storm. Accusations, trials, headlines that spun faster than truth ever could. He didn't just lose movie deals, that he lost years, that he lost trust, he lost himself. At 62, most men are looking back, but Johnny, he's still trying to find where it all went wrong. He doesn't look like the man we once knew, because that man was broken in front of the entire world. And when you're broken like that, you don't bounce back. You rebuild, brick by brick, song by song, silence by silence. That's why he turned to music. To countries where no one whispered his name with pity. He began to disappear, not out of fear, but for peace. And when he finally returned, he didn't bring back the old Johnny Depp. He brought someone quieter, older, more guarded, but maybe more free. Because at 62, he's no longer chasing fame, he's chasing truth. And the truth is, Johnny Depp doesn't need to look like he once did. That he doesn't need to play characters to be loved or fit into a mold to be remembered. He's lived 1,000 lives, on screen and off. So no, he doesn't look like that anymore. But look closer, and you'll see a man who's still standing. A man who's been dragged through the fire and walked out wearing the scars. A man who's chosen to age on his own terms. Not for cameras, not for critics, but for himself. Because the real transformation, it wasn't in his face, that it was in his fight. And if Johnny Depp can survive betrayal, public crucifixion, and the slow, silent fade of fame, and still walk into 62 with his head high, with his dignity intact, with a quiet fire still burning in his soul, then maybe, just maybe, so can you. Because it's not just about survival, it's about what you become after the storm. The world only sees the surface. They notice the wrinkles, the gray in the beard, the slower steps, the sunglasses hiding tired eyes. But they don't see the weight he carries, the years that vanished in legal battles, the friendships that turned to silence, the headlines that painted him as a villain before the truth was even whispered. And yet, here he stands, not untouched, but undefeated. Because what Johnny Depp has become at 62 isn't just older, he's wiser, he's weathered. And somehow, still full of grace. We forget sometimes that beneath the fame, beneath the characters, beneath the myth, there was always just a man. A man who loved deeply, who trusted easily, who didn't see the knives until they were already in his back. And the betrayal, it wasn't just personal. It was global. Because when the world turned on him, it wasn't quiet. It was brutal, relentless, memes, mockery, cancellation. They tried to erase him. Not just from screens, but from memory. And still, he rose. Not with revenge, not with rage, but with something quieter, something stronger, stillness. Because maybe the loudest strength is the kind that doesn't scream. At 62, he doesn't beg for relevance. He doesn't chase the spotlight. He doesn't need to be seen every day. Because he finally understands the real battles, they're fought in silence. In healing rooms. In moments when no one's watching. And the victory, it's not always a comeback movie or applause. Sometimes it's just peace. And that peace shows. In the way he walks. In the way he answers questions. In the way he lets go of who the world wanted him to be and embraces who he really is. Johnny Depp at 62 isn't the man we remembered. He's something braver. Because to age in public is one thing, but to fall in front of the world, to be ridiculed, abandoned, dragged through the dirt, and then choose to stand again, that takes a kind of courage most of us will never understand. He doesn't look like Jack Sparrow anymore. Or Edward Scissorhands. or the rebellious heartthrob from the 90s. And maybe that's okay, because he doesn't need to. What he looks like matters. Less now that it's who he's become that counts. A father, an artist, a survivor, a man who knows the cost of fame and chose to walk away from it on his own terms. And still, he stands. Still, he creates. Still, he rises. So if you've been broken, if you've been betrayed, if you've watched the life you once knew fall apart in your hands, look at Johnny Depp. Because his story isn't one of perfection, that it's one of persistence. He's proof that you can lose everything and still be worth something, that you can fall from grace and rise with more grace than ever before. That scars don't make you ugly, they make you real. That a quiet man in his 60s might carry more strength in his silence than all the shouting voices around him. And if he can do that, after everything, then maybe you can too. Maybe your healing is still in progress. Maybe you don't look like you used to. Maybe life aged you before your time. But maybe that's not a bad thing, because pain changes you, loss softens you, time humbles you, and somewhere in all that breaking, you find the real you. That's the journey Johnny Depp has walked, not just through courtrooms or film sets, but through heartbreak, humiliation, and finally, freedom. So no, he doesn't look like Johnny Depp anymore, but he looks like someone who's earned every line on his face, every gray hair, every quiet moment of peace. He looks like a man who made it through the worst and lived to tell the story. And if he can live with that story, then so can you. This isn't just about how he looks, that it's about what he's learned, what he's lost, and who he's become. That it's not the story the tabloids told. It's not the headline that ran on front pages, not the viral clips, not the courtroom memes, not the whispers that echoed louder than truth. That it's not the version the world decided to believe, because the world loves a scandal, but rarely sticks around for the healing. That it loves to watch someone fall, but rarely claps when they rise again quietly. What they gave us was a caricature, a villain, a cautionary tale. But the real story? It was never made for clicks. That it was never loud, never convenient. That it was quieter, messier, more human. That it's deeper, rawer, truer. It's not a story of a perfect man. That it's the story of a man broken open by fame and stitched back together by time. A man who gave the world unforgettable characters and then watched as the world forgot him. He didn't vanish overnight. That it was slower than that, more painful. Every article, every false quote, every friend who stayed silent, every door that closed. That it chipped away at the myth until only the man was left, standing alone in the silence. And that silence, it almost consumed him. But instead, it taught him. It taught him who he was when no one was watching, when no one was casting him, when no one was defending him. It taught him how to be still, how to sit with pain, how to make peace with things that will never be understood. Because this story, the one that matters, was never going to be written by journalists or gossip sites. That it had to be written by time, by years of reflection, by solitude, by art, by small steps taken far from the cameras, in studios, in hotel rooms, on quiet stages in foreign countries, with nothing to prove and everything to process. And now, at 62, after all the storms, after all the noise, after being dragged, doubted, and discarded, this version of Johnny Depp, it finally feels free, free from having to perform, free from having to explain, free from the pressure of always being liked or understood. Or flawless. Because he's no longer chasing redemption. He is redemption, not because the world gave it to him, but because he gave it to himself. He doesn't need to look like he did in the 90s. Or speak the way he did in press junkets. He doesn't need to charm anyone anymore. He just needs to be. And maybe that's the most powerful thing of all, because this isn't just his story, it's the story of anyone who's been misunderstood, anyone who's lost their identity in someone else's narrative, anyone who's been told they're too late, too old, too finished. But the truth? There is no too late when you're still breathing. There is no expiration date on becoming yourself. And Johnny Depp, at 62, is living proof. This story was never about what he lost, it's about what he found when everything else was stripped away. Dignity, purpose, peace, freedom, not from judgment, but from needing to be anything other than himself. This is Rise Untold.